Tonight, in the medieval era, in a stone castle in England, a quiet, heavy key rests by the window. The room settles. The air turns kind. You are safe here. A small question drifts in like lamplight. What did lords and servants know that we forgot? It lingers at the edge of the page. While wood grain glows and names breathe, we won't hurry. We'll follow ink like footprints across a calm floor. A ledger opens. Margins loosen. The past begins to unfold. Without a trumpet call, only the soft turn of paper, the hush of careful hands. Listen for a corridor far off, a door that settled once and then grew still. Imagine the pause before a choice, the loyal weight of a key in a palm, the small warmth left by a candle, learning how to wait. If you are tired, let the story carry you. If you are awake, let its pattern form at its own unhurried pace. Tonight, we will follow softly, and we will leave only quiet behind. Hey friends, tonight we'll walk right through the heart of life inside a medieval castle. Outside, a gentle mist clings to the stone walls, softening the world beyond the moat. Inside, the cobbles underfoot hold the cool memory of night, smooth from countless quiet steps. A faint bell tolls from the chapel, its tone drifting like a sigh through the halls. Warm steam rises from the kitchens, carrying the scent of fresh bread and herbs gathered at dawn. Torchlight flickers on wood grain, casting golden patterns that dance slowly across tapestries. In the corridors, a hush lingers, broken only by the soft pad of feet and the distant murmur of voices. The air holds a touch of earth and smoke, comforting in its steadiness. Windows frame the waking sky, where clouds part like veils to let in the first pale light. Somewhere, a door creaks open with care, inviting the day to unfold gently. Before we begin, please like and subscribe, only if this truly helps you unwind. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now lie back and get comfortable. Let's begin tonight's story. Hello, dear listener, and welcome to our tale of life inside a medieval castle. Lords, servants, and fortress life. Chapter 1. The Dawn of Stone and Shadow. In the quiet hours before the sun crests the distant hills, the castle stirs like a great beast, awakening from slumber. Its walls, hewn from gray stone quarried from the earth itself, rise tall and steadfast, a testament to the hands that shaped them centuries ago. These stones, cool to the touch even in the warmth of summer, hold within them the echoes of countless mornings, each one unfolding with the same patient rhythm. The castle is more than a fortress. It is a living world, a place where lives intertwine beneath vaulted ceilings and along winding passages. And so, as the first hints of light filter through narrow arrow-slit windows, the day begins, soft and unhurried, carrying with it the promise of routine and belonging. Far below, in the undercrofts where shadows linger longest, the servants are the first to rise. Their quarters, tucked into the lower levels of the keep, are simple chambers lined with straw pallets and woolen blankets, folded neatly against the chill. The air here is thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint, lingering aroma of last night's hearth fire, a comforting reminder of the warmth that will soon spread through the halls. A young page boy, no more than 12 summers old, rubs sleep from his eyes and lights a tallow candle with a flint striker, its flame sputtering to life in the dimness. He moves with practiced care, his bare feet padding across the flagstone floor, cold but familiar underfoot. Beside him, the scullions, those tasked with the humblest duties, stir from their rest, whispering softly to one another as they prepare for the tasks ahead. There is no rush in these moments, only the gentle flow of habit, like a river finding its way through well-worn channels. Upward, they climb, through narrow stairwells spiraled like seashells, their steps echoing faintly against the walls. The castle's architecture guides them, designed not just for defense, but for the ebb and flow of daily life. The great keep, the heart of the structure, towers above, and its thick walls are pierced by loops for archers and topped with battlements where guards will soon take their posts. Surrounding it, the bailey sprawls like an open palm, enclosing stables, workshops, and gardens where herbs and vegetables grow in orderly rows. A moat encircles all, its still waters, reflecting the paling sky, bridged by a drawbridge that creaks softly as it lowers with the dawn. In this design, every element serves a purpose, blending strength with the needs of those who dwell within. The servants know these paths intimately, their movements a quiet dance that brings the castle to life. In the kitchens, nestled adjacent to the great hall, to allow the warmth and scents to drift upward, the cooks begin their work beneath low-beamed ceilings. The head cook, a sturdy woman with hands calloused from years of kneading and stirring, kindles the central fire pit, feeding it dry logs that crackle gently as they catch. Soon, the air fills with the soothing aroma of oats simmering in iron pots, mingled with the earthy tang of fresh ale drawn from wooden barrels in the buttery nearby. Servants move about with measured steps, chopping roots and herbs on broad wooden tables, their knives whispering against the grain. A milkmaid arrives from the dairy, her pails sloshing softly with cream skimmed from the morning's yield, while the pantler slices loaves of dark rye bread, still warm from the ovens fired the night before. These routines are the threads that weave the castle's fabric, each one carried out with a sense of quiet duty, ensuring that the higher halls remain orderly and sustained. As the light strengthens, filtering through the small, glazed windows of the upper levels, the lady of the castle awakens in the solar, a private chamber reserved for the noble family. This room, positioned to catch the southern sun, is a haven of relative comfort amid the stone's austerity. Tapestries adorn the walls, their woven scenes of forests and hunts softening the echoes and trapping warmth from the fireplace below. The lady rises from her four-poster bed, its heavy curtains drawn back to reveal feather mattresses and linen sheets embroidered with delicate threads. Her attendants, loyal women who have served her since girlhood, assist with her morning ablutions, pouring water scented with rose petals into a basin of polished pewter. The water is warmed over a brazier, its steam rising like a gentle mist, carrying the faint floral notes that linger in the air. She dresses in layers of fine wool and linen, her gown fastened with laces that whisper as they tighten, preparing her for the day's gentle oversight. Beside her, in the adjoining great chamber, the Lord stirs from his rest. His bedchamber, grander still, features a hearth where embers glow softly, casting a warm amber light across the room. He awakens to the distant sounds of the castle coming alive, the muffled clatter of pots from the kitchens far below, the soft neigh of horses in the stables as grooms begin their feedings. Rising, he washes his face in cool water drawn from the well, the droplets tracing paths down his skin like forgotten rain. His squire enters quietly, bearing a tunic and hose of rich fabric, helping him don the garments with reverent care. The Lord's day will unfold with purpose, but in these early moments, there is only the calm of preparation, the weight of the heavy key at his belt, a reminder of the responsibilities that await. This key, forged in the castle's own smithy, unlocks storerooms and gates, symbolizing the trust placed in his hands. Down in the chapel, a small but sacred space near the great hall, the household gathers for morning prayers. The chaplain, clad in simple robes, leads the service in a low, melodic voice, the words of Latin scripture flowing like a soothing stream. Lords and ladies kneel on cushioned prie-dieu at the front, their heads bowed in quiet reflection, while servants stand at the rear, their whispers joining the chorus of amens. The air here is scented with beeswax from candles flickering on the altar, their light illuminating frescoes of saints and angels painted on the walls. Incense curls upward in thin tendrils, its subtle spice blending with the cool stone's essence, creating a moment of shared peace before the day's labors diverge. With prayers concluded, the castle turns to breaking its fast. In the great hall, the heart of communal life, trestle tables are set with care by the pages and serving maids. This vast room, with its high timbered ceiling and massive fireplace at one end, serves as the gathering place for all. The lord and lady take their seats on the raised dais, overlooking the hall, where knights and higher servants sit at long benches. Fresh bread is passed along with cheese, cold meats from the larder, and tankards of small beer to quench the morning thirst. The scents mingle warmly, yeasty dough, sharp cheddar, the faint saltiness of preserved ham, while conversations murmur like a gentle breeze, touching on the weather, the fields beyond the walls, and the small matters of the estate. Servants move among them, refilling platters with quiet efficiency, their presence a steady undercurrent to the meal's calm progression. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the bailey, the routines branch outward. The lord ventures to the gatehouse, where guards in mail hauberks stand watch, their eyes scanning the horizon. Here, the architecture reveals its defensive soul. Thick portcullises ready to drop, murder holes overhead for unseen protection. But in peacetime, it is a place of orderly vigilance, the air fresh with the scent of dew on grass. He confers with the constable, discussing the rotation of watches and the state of the armory, his voice steady and low, fostering a sense of security that permeates the castle. Meanwhile, the lady oversees the household from the solar, her window offering views of the gardens below. She directs the maids in their spinning and weaving, the soft whir of distaffs and looms filling the room like a lullaby. Herbs dry in bundles from the rafters, their dried leaves releasing subtle fragrances of lavender and sage, remedies for ailments and flavors for the table. In the kitchens, the midday meal preparations intensify, with cooks roasting joints of meat on spits turned by young turnspits, the juices sizzling into the fire below. The air thickens with savory notes, promising the feast to come. Servants scatter to their varied tasks. Gardeners tend the plots their hands in soft soil, planting seeds that will yield in seasons ahead. Blacksmiths hammer at the forge, the rhythmic clang softened by distance. Stable hands groom horses, the animals' coats gleaming under brushes, their contented snorts adding to the symphony of life. In the dovecote, a servant collects eggs, the pigeons cooing softly in their niches, their feathers rustling like pages in an old book. Each roll, from the humblest to the highest, contributes to the castle's harmony, a web of interdependence woven through generations. And so, the morning unfolds, layer by layer, like petals opening to the light. The castle, with its rooms of purpose and passages of connection, breathes with the lives it shelters. Lords command with gentle authority, servants labor with quiet devotion, and the stone itself seems to hold them all in a timeless embrace. In this world, time moves at the pace of the sun's arc, each moment savored in its simplicity, leaving room for the whispers of history to linger in the air. As noon approaches, the great hall fills once more, but that is a tale for the hours ahead. For now, in the hush between tasks, one can almost hear the castle's heartbeat, the soft creak of wood, the distant call of a bird over the battlements, the enduring quiet that binds it all together. Here, in the medieval era's embrace, life inside these walls teaches us the art of steady presence, where every dawn renews the gentle promise of continuity. Chapter 2: The Midday Meal and Gentle Labors. As the sun reaches its zenith, casting a warm glow over the battlements, the castle pulses with a midday rhythm, like the steady breath of the earth itself. The bailey below bustles softly, voices mingling with the clip of hooves on cobblestones and the distant ring of a hammer from the smithy. In this hour, the great hall becomes the focal point, drawing all within the walls toward a shared moment of sustenance and communion. The air carries the rich scents of roasting meats and spiced pottage, weaving through the corridors like an invitation whispered on the breeze. And so, the household converges, lords and servants alike, in a dance of hierarchy and harmony that has unfolded across generations, binding them in the simple act of breaking bread together. The great hall, vast and echoing, transforms under the noonday light streaming through high windows. Its walls, adorned with shields and banners that faded softly with time, bear the crests of noble lineages, their colors muted to a gentle patina. Long trestle tables stretch the length of the room, covered now with white linen cloths that drape like fallen snow, smoothed by the careful hands of serving maids. At the far end, the high table on the dais awaits the lord and lady, elevated just enough to oversee the gathering without imposing distance. Benches line the sides, worn smooth by countless sittings, their wood grains telling silent stories of feasts past. The massive fireplace crackles with fresh logs, its warmth spreading outward, chasing away any lingering chill from the stone floors. Servants move with quiet purpose, placing trenchers, thick slices of stale bread serving as plates before each seat, their surfaces ready to soak up the juices of the meal to come. In the kitchens adjacent, the activity reaches a calm crescendo. The head cook oversees the final preparations, her apron dusted with flour, as she stirs a cauldron of pottage bubbling over the fire. This hearty stew, made from peas, beans, and vegetables, harvested from the castle gardens, simmers with herbs like thyme and rosemary, their aromas rising in steamy tendrils that fill the low-ceilinged space. Beside her, the spit boys turn the roasts, perhaps a side of venison from the lord's recent hunt, or pork from the estate's swineherd. The meat, sizzling as fat, drips into the flames below, creating small bursts of fragrance that hint at the savory delight ahead. Bakers pull loaves from the brick ovens, their crusts golden and crackling, while the pantler arranges cheeses and fruits on platters, the sharp tang of cheddar mingling with the sweetness of apples picked from the orchard. Ale flows from tapped barrels in the buttery, drawn into pitchers that clink softly as they are carried forth. Each element is prepared with care, reflecting the castle's self-sufficiency, drawn from its own lands and labors. As the household assembles, the Lord enters first, his presence announced not by fanfare, but by the respectful hush that falls over the room. He takes his seat at the high table, the heavy key at his belt glinting faintly in the light, a symbol of his stewardship over the stores that make this meal possible. The lady joins him, her gown rustling softly as she settles, her attendants ensuring her comfort with a cushion or a draped shawl. Knights and retainers file in next, their mail coifs removed for the meal, revealing faces weathered by duty, yet softened in this moment of repose. They sit at the lower tables, conversing in low tones about the morning's trainings or the state of the fields. Servants follow, taking their places at the farthest ends, their roles allowing them this brief equality in nourishment, though their portions will be simpler, befitting their station. The meal begins with a grace spoken by the chaplain, his voice a gentle murmur that carries through the hall, invoking blessings on the food and those who partake. Then the serving commences, a procession of maids and pages bearing trays laden with the kitchen's offerings. First come the pottages, ladled into trenchers with wooden spoons, the steam carrying notes of onion and garlic softened by long cooking. Roasted meats follow, carved at the sideboard by the Lord's carver, slices placed with precision onto waiting plates, vegetables glazed with honey from the castle's hives add a touch of sweetness, while sauces, mustard for the meats, verjuice for the greens, are passed in small ewers, their flavors enhancing the humble ingredients. Ale and wine flow freely, the former for the lower tables, the latter perhaps a claret imported from distant vineyards, reserved for the nobility. The air fills with the subtle symphony of cutlery on wood, the soft clink of goblets, and the murmur of conversation, all blending into a comforting hum. During this time, the hall becomes a tapestry of interactions, where the boundaries of rank blur ever so slightly in the warmth of shared sustenance. The Lord might learn to speak with his steward, discussing the yields from the Demason lands or the repairs needed on the outer walls, his tone measured and thoughtful. The lady engages her women in quiet talk of embroidery patterns or the health of the household, her laughter a soft ripple that eases the atmosphere. Knights share tales of tournaments past, their voices low to avoid boasting, while pages listen wide-eyed, absorbing the lore that will shape their futures. Even the servants exchange glances and whispers, perhaps about the quality of the harvest or the antics of a wayward hound in the bailey. In these moments, the castle reveals its human core, a community sustained not just by stone and steel, but by the gentle threads of connection woven over meals like this. As the eating slows, minstrels take their place near the hearth, their lutes and harps tuned to melodies that float through the air like drifting leaves. They sing ballads of chivalry and love, their voices warm and unhurried, accompanying the final courses of fruits and nuts, perhaps a custard sweetened with precious sugar for the high table. The music soothes, encouraging lingering over tankards, Where plans for the afternoon unfold in casual discourse, the lord might call for his falconer to report on the bird's training, the conversation turning to the hunt planned for the morrow, while the lady inquires after the weaver's progress on new tapestries to adorn the solar. With the meal concluded, the hall empties gradually, each departing to their afternoon duties with renewed vigor. The servants clear the tables, gathering the trenchers, now softened by sauces, to be given as alms to the beggars at the gate, or fed to the hounds. The lord retires to his chamber, or the tilt yard for oversight of training, where squires practice with wooden swords under the watchful eyes of knights. The clash of arms is muffled by distance, a rhythmic underscore to the day's progression rather than a jarring interruption. In the bailey, craftsmen resume their work. The armorer mends chainmail with careful links. The fletcher feathers arrows in bundles, their feathers soft as whispers. Gardeners tend the plots, weeding between rows of cabbage and leeks, the soil yielding easily under their tools, releasing the fresh scent of turned earth. The lady, in the solar, gathers her ladies for needlework, the room bathed in afternoon light that filters through leaded panes. They sit in a circle, threads of silk and wool passing through their fingers, creating patterns of flowers and beasts that will grace gowns and hangings. Conversation flows softly, touching on remedies for common ailments, lavender for headaches, chamomile for sleep, or the latest news from traveling merchants who passed through the week before. Below, in the still room, servants distill essences from herbs, the air heavy with floral notes that promise healing in the days ahead. Younger members of the household find their own pursuits. Pages run errands, carrying messages sealed with wax across the castle grounds, their steps light and eager. Children of servants play in supervised corners of the bailey, their laughter a bright thread in the tapestry. Chasing hoops or tossing stones in games passed down through time. The castle's animals, too, partake in the afternoon's calm. The horses groomed in stables, smelling of hay and leather, the doves cooing in their coties, the pigs rooting contentedly in their pens. In the hush of mid-afternoon, when the sun begins its slow descent, moments of repose emerge. A guard on the battlements pauses to gaze at the rolling fields beyond, where serfs till the soil in distant patterns, their work a mirror to the castle's own labors. Inside, a servant might steal a quiet interval by a window, mending a garment with steady stitches, the needle's rhythm a meditation. The lord, perhaps, consults his accounts in the exchequer, the heavy key unlocking the chest of ledgers, where quill meets parchment in careful notations of grains stored and tithes collected. And so the afternoon wanes, layer by layer, like sunlight fading across the stone. The castle, in its midday fullness, teaches the grace of balance between feasting and toil, command and service, the grand and the gentle. Here lives entwined in the warmth of routine, each task a quiet affirmation of place and purpose. As shadows lengthen toward evening, the preparations for supper begin anew, but that is a whisper for the hours yet to come. For now, in the soft interlude, one senses the enduring pulse of this world, where every labor leaves a trace of warmth in the air, inviting the night to approach with kindness. Chapter 3. Shadows lengthen in the bailey as the afternoon sun dips toward the horizon, painting the castle walls in hues of amber and gold. A subtle shift settles over the grounds like a soft veil drawn across the day. The bailey, that open heart of the fortress, hums with a gentler energy now, the earlier bustle giving way to purposeful pursuits that blend duty with moments of quiet repose. Birds wheel lazily overhead, their calls drifting down like forgotten melodies, while the air carries the faint, earthy scent of hay from the stables and the distant tang of iron from the forge. In this interlude between midday's fullness and evening's approach, the inhabitants turn to tasks that strengthen body and spirit, weaving threads of skill and leisure into the castle's enduring tapestry. And so, the hours unfold, measured not by urgency, but by the slow arc of light across stone, inviting all to find their place in the rhythm of the keep. In the tilt yard, a cleared space within the bailey's embrace, knights and squires gather for training, their movements a graceful echo of the chivalric code that binds them. The ground here is packed earth, softened by recent rains, and marked with the faint imprints of boots and hooves from sessions past. A knight, clad in padded gambeson rather than full plate, to allow for ease, demonstrates the art of the sword to his squire, the blade whispering through the air in controlled arcs. The squire, a youth of 15 summers, mirrors the motions with a wooden practice sword, his brow furrowed in concentration, the wood thudding softly against a pell, a sturdy post wrapped in straw to simulate an opponent. Other knights pair off for spars, their strikes deliberate and measured, the clash of blunted weapons muffled by the open air, more a conversation than a conflict. The lord observes from a shaded vantage, his presence a quiet encouragement, and offering nods of approval or gentle corrections that carry on the breeze. This practice is not born of imminent threat, but of habit, honing skills like a blade on a whetstone, ensuring the castle's defenders remain vigilant in times of peace. Nearby, archers take their places at the butts, long ranges marked by earthen mounds, where targets of straw and cloth stand sentinel. The bowmen, often yeomen from the estate's villages, draw yew longbows with steady hands, the strings creaking softly as they knock arrows fletched with goose feathers. The thrum of release sends shafts arcing gracefully, embedding with a dull thunk into the targets, their points glinting in the slanting light. A master archer circulates among them, adjusting stances or advising on aim, his voice low and instructive, fostering precision that could one day safeguard the walls. Pages watch from the sidelines, their eyes wide with aspiration, perhaps fetching spent arrows to return them in neat bundles, the feathers brushing their palms like whispers from the wind. In these exercises, the castle breathes strength, each draw and release a quiet affirmation of readiness, blended seamlessly with the day's calm flow. Beyond the tilt yard, in the orchards and gardens that fringe the bailey, the lady and her attendants find solace in gentler labors. The gardens, enclosed by low wattle fences to ward off wandering livestock, bloom with orderly beds of flowers and herbs, their petals unfurling in the afternoon warmth. Lavender spikes release their soothing fragrance as fingers brush them, while roses climb trellises in shades of crimson and ivory, their thorns carefully avoided by gloved hands. The lady kneels to tend a patch of medicinal plants, chamomile for teas that ease sleep, mint for infusions that freshen the breath, her movements unhurried, the soil crumbling softly under her trowel. Her women join her, gathering blooms into baskets woven from willow, chatting in soft tones about remedies passed down from mothers and grandmothers. A bee hums lazily from flower to flower, its presence a gentle companion, while the air holds the mingled scents of blooming life, a balm for the senses that lingers on sleeves and skin. In the falconry mews, tucked against the outer wall, the Lord's falconer tends to the birds of prey, their hooded forms perched on the weathered blocks, feathers ruffled slightly by the breeze. These raptors peregrines with sleek wings for swift dives, goshawks for woodland pursuits, are prized for the hunt, their keen eyes symbols of nobility's reach beyond the castle. The falconer, a man of quiet expertise, checks jesses and bells, the tiny chimes tinkling softly as he moves. He might take a bird to his gloved fist, removing the hood to let it blink into the light, its gaze sharp and unyielding. Squires assist, learning to handle the creatures with respect, feeding them morsels of fresh meat from the morning's kill. The act of a bond forged in patience. The mews echo with the occasional soft cry, a reminder of the wild tethered gently to human will, preparing for hunts that blend sport with provision for the table. As shadows stretch longer across the cobblestones, craftsmen in the workshops resume their trades, and the sounds are a subdued symphony that underscores the afternoon. The blacksmith at his forge pumps the bellows with rhythmic pulls, the fire glowing orange as he shapes horseshoes or mends tools. The hammer's rings softened by the enclosing walls. Sparks dance briefly before fading, like stars in daylight, while the scent of heated metal mingles with charcoal smoke, drifting upward in lazy coils. Beside him, the carpenter planes wood for new benches or repairs to the drawbridge, shavings curling away like parchment scrolls, the grain revealing patterns of growth, rings from ancient oaks. Leather workers stitch saddles and harnesses, needles piercing hides with steady pricks, the material supple under oiled fingers. These artisans, often freeholders or skilled servants, work with a focus born of pride, their creations sustaining the castle's daily needs, each piece a quiet legacy of handiwork. Children of the household, those of noble birth or servants' kin, find their own corners for play and learning in the waning light. In a sheltered alcove, a tutor gathers young pages for lessons in letters and numbers, using slate boards and chalk that scrape softly, inscribing words from chronicles or simple sums for managing estates. The children sit on low stools, their voices murmuring responses, the air scented with the faint must of old books brought from the Lord's small library. Elsewhere, servant children chase wooden hoops across the bailey, their laughter light and fleeting, or gather pebbles for games of skill, stacking them in towers that mimic the keep itself. These moments of innocence weave joy into the fabric, a counterpoint to the adult's duties, reminding all of life's cyclical grace. The lady, retiring briefly to the solar, might oversee the spinning of wool, the wheels humming like distant bees as fibers twist into yarn under deft hands. Tapestries in progress hang on frames, needles pulling threads through canvas to depict scenes of mythic hunts or biblical tales. Colors blending in soft gradients, conversation flows like a gentle stream, touching on courtly news from rare visitors or the turning of seasons. Each word a thread strengthening bonds of companionship. From the window, views of the bailey unfold, the activities below a living mural that reassures of the castle's vitality. In quieter nooks, servants steal respites, a groom leaning against a stable door, watching horses graze in their paddock, the animals' tails swishing lazily against flies. A maid pausing in her mending to feel the sun's warmth on her face. Eyes closed in brief reverie, the chaplain, in the chapel's cool interior, prepares vespers, arranging candles on the altar, their wicks trimmed for even burning, the space infused with the subtle spice of incense stored in carved boxes. These pauses, small as they are, allow the soul to breathe, aligning with the day's ebbing energy. As the sun nears the treetops, heralding the close of the afternoon, preparations turn toward the evening meal. Cooks in the kitchens begin simmering suppers, the aromas building slowly, perhaps a fish stew from the moat's carp, seasoned with leeks and wine, or pies filled with game from the larder. Servants polish silver ewers and set the hall's tables anew, linens smoothed with care, anticipating the gathering that will draw the day to its gentle close. And so, the afternoon fades, brushstroke by brushstroke, like light retreating across a canvas. The castle, in its shadowed pursuits, imparts lessons of balance, strength tempered by grace, labor eased by leisure, the grand design held in humble hands. Here, amid the lengthening shadows, connections deepen, each activity a quiet echo of belonging. As twilight whispers its arrival, the night watch begins its vigil, but that is a hush for the coming dusk. For now, in the soft lingering, one feels the castle's embrace, where every pursuit leaves a trace of peace in the air, welcoming the evening with open arms. Chapter 4. Whispers of Evening and Hearth. As twilight drapes its soft mantle over the castle, the world within the walls begins to fold inward, like petals closing against the cooling air. The bailey, once alive with the day's pursuits, now quiets to a murmur, shadows pooling in corners, where the last rays of sun linger like forgotten embers. Torches are kindled along the battlements, their flames flickering gently to life, casting a warm, amber glow that dances across stone and turf. The air carries the subtle shift of evening, the crisp edge of approaching night, mingled with the savory promises from the kitchens, where suppers simmer in anticipation. In this hour of transition, the household draws together, seeking the comfort of shared spaces and familiar routines, allowing the day's labors to ease into repose. And so, the evening unfolds, layer by tender layer, inviting all to surrender to the hush that cradles the keep. In the great hall, preparations for the evening meal transform the space into a haven of warmth and light. Servants move with unhurried grace, lighting rushlights in iron sconces that line the walls, their soft sputter adding to the growing illumination. The high table is set with finer care now, silver platters polished to a subtle sheen, goblets of pewter arranged like sentinels awaiting their fill. Fresh rushes are scattered across the floor, mingled with sweet herbs, like meadow sweet and woodruff, their fragrance rising underfoot to mask the day's dust and infuse the air with a calming earthiness. The massive hearth roars to fuller life, logs crackling as they settle, sending sparks upward in lazy spirals, the heat spreading outward to chase the chill from bones and stone alike. Minstrels tune their instruments in a corner, strings humming softly as fingers test notes, preparing melodies that will weave through the meal like threads of silk. From the kitchens, the evening's offerings emerge, carried forth in a procession that fills the corridors with enticing aromas. The head cook, her face flushed from the fires, oversees the final touches of a frumenty of wheat boiled in milk and spiced with cinnamon, a rare treat from the Lord's stores, pies encasing tender game birds, their crusts flaky and golden, steam escaping in gentle wisps as they are sliced. Fish from the moat or nearby rivers, poached in wine with leeks and butter, add a delicate note, while vegetables from the gardens, carrots and turnips glazed with honey, provide an earthy balance. Ale and mead flow from jugs, the latter sweetened with fermented honey from the hives, its golden hue catching the torchlight. Each dish is placed with care, the servant's hands steady and respectful, ensuring portions reflect the hall's subtle hierarchy, yet all partake in the bounty that sustains them. As the household gathers once more, the lord and lady enter, their presence a quiet anchor for the assembly. They take their seats on the dais, the lady's gown catching the light in soft folds, the lord's key now resting on the table beside him, a symbol of the day's accounts closed. Knights and retainers follow, their voices lowered in evening's deference, sharing reflections on the afternoon's trainings or news from distant manors carried by a passing messenger. Servants slip into their places, eyes bright with the promise of rest ahead, their conversations a soft undercurrent, touching on small joys, a well-tended garden yielding early fruits, a mended tool ready for tomorrow's use. The chaplain offers a blessing, his words a gentle invocation for gratitude and peace, the amens echoing faintly before the meal commences. Supper unfolds at a leisurely pace, forks and knives moving with measured rhythm, the flavors unfolding on the tongue, like stories told by firelight, the richness of the pies yielding to tender meat, the subtle spice of the frumenti warming from within. Conversation drifts like smoke, the Lord perhaps recounting a tale from his youth, his voice steady and warm, drawing smiles and nods from those around. The lady speaks of the garden's progress, her attendants adding details of blooms that promise color in the weeks ahead. Minstrels begin their songs, lutes and viols blending in harmonies that soothe, ballads of heroic deeds softened to lullabies of valor and love, their notes lingering in the rafters like echoes of the past. In these moments, the hall becomes a cocoon of fellowship, where the outside world fades, leaving only the gentle bonds that tie lord to servant, knight to page. With the meal drawing to a close, sweeter courses appear, custards flavored with almond milk and rose water, fruits preserved in syrup from summer's harvest, their juices glistening in bowls. Nuts are cracked by hand, shells falling softly to the rushes, while spiced wine, mulled with cloves and ginger, is passed in warmed cups, its steam carrying a comforting heat that eases into the bones. The minstrels shift to quieter tunes, perhaps a harp solo that plucks at heartstrings like rain on leaves, allowing conversations to deepen or dwindle as weariness beckons. Children, if present, listen wide-eyed to the tales, their heads nodding against shoulders as the evening's magic envelops them. As plates are cleared, the household begins to disperse, each to their evening pursuits in the softening light. The Lord might retire to the solar with his steward, poring over parchments by candlelight, the quill scratching softly as they note the day's tallies, grains stored, cloths woven, tithes received. The heavy key unlocks a chest of documents, its click a quiet punctuation to the accounts, ensuring the castle's prosperity flows onward like a steady stream. In the ladies' chamber, women gather for quiet embroidery or reading from illuminated manuscripts. The pages turned with care, their illustrations glowing under lantern light. Stories from romances or saints' lives are shared in hushed voices, the words weaving dreams into the fabric of the night. In the lower halls, servants find their own respites, a game of dice by the kitchen fire, laughter muffled to not disturb the upper floors, or mending clothes in circles, needles threading through fabric with rhythmic pulls, sharing folklore passed from generation to generation. The chaplain leads Compline in the chapel, a brief service of psalms chanted in low tones, the candle flames steady companions to prayers for safe repose. Guards ascend to the battlements for the night watch, their footsteps echoing faintly as they pace the walls, eyes scanning the darkened landscape beyond, the stars emerging like distant lanterns in the sky. Young pages and squires prepare for bed in their quarters, washing faces in basins of cool water, the splash a soft reminder of the day's end. They whisper of adventures dreamed, the castle's stone absorbing their secrets like an old friend. In the stables, grooms make final checks, horses snuffling contentedly. In their stalls, the scent of fresh straw, a blanket of comfort. The dovecote quiets, birds settling in their niches, while the kitchen's dim, embers banked for the morrow. The last pots scrubbed clean with sand and water. Throughout the castle, lanterns are trimmed, their wicks lowered to a gentle glow, casting pools of light that guide the way to rest. Doors creak softly as they close, latches falling into place with a quiet click, securing the world within. The moat reflects the emerging moon, its surface still as glass, while owls call from the woods beyond, their hoots a lullaby for the watchful. In this evening hush, the castle teaches the art of release, letting go of the day's hold, embracing the peace that night bestows. And so, the twilight deepens, shade by shade, like ink spreading across parchment. The fortress, in its evening whispers, reveals the tenderness beneath its strength, where hearths warm not just bodies, but souls, and routines become rituals of belonging. Here, as lamps flicker low, connections linger in the air, a quiet promise of renewal with the dawn. As midnight approaches, the final vigils begin, but that is a murmur for the darkest hours. For now, in the gentle descent, one senses the castle's sigh, exhaling the day into dreams, leaving only serenity in its wake. Chapter 5. The Velvet Cloak of Night. As midnight claims the sky, wrapping the castle in a velvet cloak, studded with stars, a profound stillness descends, broken only by the occasional sigh of wind through the battlements. The halls, once echoing with the day's gentle cadence, now hold their breath, shadows deepening into pools of quiet mystery. Lanterns burn low in their brackets, casting elongated flickers that play across stone, like memories half remembered. The moat lies mirror still, reflecting the moon's pale gaze, while distant woods whisper secrets to the night. In this hour of deepest repose, the castle transforms into a sanctuary of dreams, where watchers keep vigil and sleepers drift in the embrace of feather and wool. And so, the night deepens, hour by tranquil hour, allowing the world within to renew itself in silence, preparing for the dawn that waits beyond the horizon. On the battlements, the night guard begins their solitary rounds, footsteps muffled on the worn stone paths that crown the walls. These men, chosen for their steadfastness, carry torches that sputter softly, their light a small defiance against the encompassing dark. The air up here is crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew on grass from the fields below, mingled with the earthy tang of moss clinging to the merlons. A guard pauses at a crenel, gazing out over the landscape where villages slumber under thatched roofs, their chimneys trailing thin wisps of smoke like final breaths of the day. He listens to the night's symphony, the hoot of an owl from the treetops, the rustle of leaves stirred by unseen creatures, the distant bark of a fox echoing across the moors. His chainmail shifts with a soft clink as he moves, a reminder of the protection he offers, though in peacetime, his watch is more communion with the stars than preparation for peril. Below, in the gatehouse, the portcullis stands lowered, its iron teeth locked in place, the drawbridge raised like a sentinel at rest. The constable, a veteran of many such nights, sits by a small brazier, its coals glowing with subdued warmth, casting ruddy light on his face. Lined by years of service, he sips from a mug of herbal tisane, chamomile and valerian steeped to ease the vigil, the steam rising in gentle curls that carry a soothing floral note. Beside him, a ledger lies open, quill at hand to note any occurrences, though most entries speak of quiet. A shooting star sighted, a traveler's lantern glimpsed on the road, but passing without approach. The heavy key, now hanging from a hook on the wall, gleams faintly, its weight a symbol of the trust that secures the castle's gates until morning. In the keep's upper chambers, the lord and lady find their rest in the great bed, curtains drawn around them like a private world. The room is warmed by dying embers in the hearth, the scent of wood smoke lingering softly, blended with the lavender sachets tucked into the linens. The lady sleeps with hair unbound, her breathing even and deep, dreams perhaps carrying her to gardens in bloom or distant courts of kin. The lord, ever the guardian even in slumber, stirs occasionally, his hand resting near the dagger on the bedside chest. Though the night demands no such readiness, attendants sleep nearby on pallets, ready to rise if needed, their presence a quiet assurance that allows nobility to surrender fully to repose. The air holds a hush, broken only by the faint creak of settling timbers, as if the castle itself dreams alongside its inhabitants. Down in the servants' quarters, nestled in the lower levels, the household slumbers in communal warmth. Straw mattresses line the floors, covered with blankets woven from the estate's wool, their textures rough, but comforting after a day's toil. A scullion boy curls under his coverlet, face relaxed in sleep, perhaps dreaming of the kitchen's feasts rather than his scrubbing pots. Maids share a chamber, whispers fading into snores as fatigue claims them, the air scented with a faint soap from evening washes. The head cook, in her alcove, rests with arms folded, her steady rhythm an anchor for the others. Pages and squires, in their dormitory, exchange no more tales, heads pillowed on arms, the room's quiet, punctuated by the soft sighs of youth. Here, in the heart of the castle's underbelly, sleep is a shared refuge, binding them in vulnerability and trust. The chapel, bathed in the moon's silver light filtering through stained glass, stands as a beacon of spiritual solace. The chaplain, if wakeful, might kneel at the altar for private prayer, his murmurs blending with the night's stillness, candles guttering low to cast dancing shadows on the frescoes. Icons of saints watch over, their painted eyes serene, offering silent companionship to any who seeks midnight counsel. Occasionally, a servant slips in for a moment of reflection, knees bending on the cool stone, hands clasped in quiet petition for health, for harvest, for peace unbroken. The air is infused with the lingering spice of earlier incense, a gentle reminder of the divine thread woven through mortal nights. In the stables, horses stand dozing in their stalls, legs locked in rest, manes stirring slightly with each breath. The stable master makes a final round, lantern held high to check latches and feed troughs, the light revealing coats groomed to a soft sheen. Hay rustles underfoot, its sweet, dry scent filling the space, while water buckets reflect the flame like tiny moons. A cat prowls the rafters, eyes gleaming in the dark, keeping watch over mice that scurry in the shadows. The animal's contentment mirrors the castle's own, a living pulse that slows with the hours, ensuring strength for the morrow's rides and labors. Throughout the passages, occasional lanterns mark the way for those who must stir. A midwife called to a village birth, slipping out through a postern gate with the constable's nod, or a healer tending to a fevered child in the servants' hall. Poultices of herbs applied with gentle hands, the scent of willow bark and honey soothing the air. These movements are whispers in the night, careful not to disturb the greater slumber, each step a testament to the castle's self-contained world, where needs are met within its embrace. As the hours creep toward the witching time, dreams visit the sleepers in the varied forms. The Lord might envision strategies for alliances, maps unfolding in his mind like parchments unrolled. The lady dreams of tapestries coming alive, threads weaving tales of love and legacy. Servants revisit simpler joys, a fair day's dance, a bountiful table, the warmth of family hearths left behind. Children chase phantoms of play, laughter echoing in subconscious realms. The castle, in its nocturnal quiet, becomes a vessel for these inner journeys. Stone walls holding space for the intangible wanderings of the soul. The night watch continues its circuit, guards exchanging soft words at shift changes, passing the torch with a nod and a murmur of all quiet. From the highest tower, the view encompasses the domain, the river winding like a silver ribbon, fields lying fallow under the stars, the distant glow of a hermit's hut. The cosmos wheels overhead, constellations telling ancient stories to those who gaze upward, a reminder of the vastness beyond the walls. In this vigil, there is a poetry of solitude, a chance to ponder life's gentle mysteries without the day's distractions. Toward the pre-dawn hush, when the sky begins to pale at the edges, the first stirrings emerge. A rooster in the bailey crows, tentatively, its call a harbinger, muffled by distance. Bakers in the kitchens rise to kindle ovens, dough kneaded in the dim light. The yeasts ferment a promise of morning's bread. The castle, ever cyclical, prepares to awaken, but for now, the night holds sway, its cloak a protective shroud over all. And so, the midnight passes, moment by serene moment, like sands through an hourglass turned soft. The fortress, in its velvet hours, unveils the beauty of stillness, where watches keep faith and dreams restore the weary. Here, beneath the stars' gentle gaze, bonds of community endure unseen, each breath a quiet vow of continuity. As the first light whispers its return, the cycle renews, but that is a dawn for another telling. For now, in the profound quiet, one feels the castle's essence as a haven where night cradles day, leaving only peace in its tender wake. Chapter 6. Echoes of Dawn and Eternal Cycles. As the first faint blush of dawn creeps over the eastern hills, painting the sky in delicate shades of rose and gold, The castle begins its gentle reawakening, like a sleeper stirring from profound dreams. The battlements, silhouetted against the paling night, catch the earliest light, their stones warming imperceptibly from the chill embrace of midnight, each crevice and mortar line etched in soft relief by the emerging glow. Stars fade one by one, yielding to the promise of day, their twinkling replaced by the subtle hues that herald renewal. The moat's surface shimmers with reflected colors, ripples forming from a soft breeze that carries the scent of dew-kissed earth, mingled with the faint, fresh aroma of wildflowers blooming along its banks. Birds begin their morning chorus from the nearby woods, their songs drifting in like distant melodies, a gentle prelude to the activities that will soon unfold. In this threshold between night and morning, the fortress exhales the quiet mysteries of the dark hours, the air itself seeming to lighten, preparing to embrace the familiar rhythms once more. And so, the cycle renews, breath by tender breath, weaving the threads of yesterday into the tapestry of today, reminding all within of life's enduring flow, where each dawn is a quiet promise whispered across generations. In the gatehouse, the night guard concludes their vigil torches, guttering low as the constable notes the final hours in his ledger. The quills scratch a soft punctuation to the stillness ink flowing smoothly onto parchment that holds the night's unremarkable peace. He rises, stretching limbs stiffened by the watch, muscles easing with the motion, and signals the drawbridges lowering with a murmured command to his assistants. Chains rattle gently as the massive timbers descend, the wood groaning softly under its own weight, bridging the moat with a thud that echoes faintly across the bailey, sending small waves lapping against the stone edges. The portcullis rises next, its iron grid lifting like a yawn, teeth retracting into the grooves above, allowing the first hints of morning air to flow inward, fresh and invigorating, carrying notes of damp grass and distant smoke from village hearths awakening far beyond the walls. Guards exchange places with the day shift, words passed in low tones, reports of a peaceful night, perhaps a fox sighted in the fields, its shadow fleeting under the moon, or the call of a nightjar that pierced the quiet hours, their handover a seamless thread in the castle's protective web, hands clasping briefly in camaraderie before parting ways. The heavy key turns in the lock of the wicket gate, a small door within the larger, its mechanism clicking with familiar precision, permitting early risers to venture forth if needed, perhaps a messenger bound for the village or a huntsman checking snares, though most remain within the comforting bounds, content to let the day unfold from inside. Below in the kitchens, the bakers are the harbingers of dawn's bounty, their forms moving in the dim glow of rekindled fires, shadows dancing on the walls as they work. Embers from the night are stirred to life with fresh kindling, flames leaping softly to heat the oven's brick interiors, the heat building gradually, warming hands chilled by the pre-dawn air. Dough, prepared the evening before and left to rise, undercloths dampened slightly to prevent drying, is kneaded on floured boards. The rhythmic thump, a lullaby reversing into wakefulness, flour dusting the air like fine mist. Loaves take shape under skilled hands, scored with crosses for blessing and even baking, the knife's edge whispering across the surface, then slid into the heat, where they will transform, crusts browning to golden perfection, expanding with the yeast's quiet magic. The air fills gradually with the yeasty warmth of a rising bread, a scent that drifts upward through flues and passages, teasing the senses of those still abed, evoking memories of childhood mornings or feasts shared in times of plenty. Beside them, the cooks prepare porridges in cauldrons hung over the flames, oats swelling in milk drawn fresh from the dairy, the liquid steaming gently as it absorbs the grains, sweetened perhaps with honey from the hives, its golden viscosity drizzled in slow spirals, or dried fruits from the store's apples, withered to chewy sweetness, raisins plump from soaking, herbs like cinnamon or nutmeg, sparingly used from precious spice chests, add subtle layers of warmth, their aromas mingling to create a comforting haze that clings to aprons and hair. These simple acts, repeated across seasons and years, ground the castle in sustenance. Each stir of the spoon, a quiet affirmation of continuity, linking the present to the labors of ancestors who tended these same fires. In the stables, grooms rise with the light, lanterns hung from hooks, casting soft pools on straw-littered floors, the golden stalks crunching underfoot as they move. Horses nicker softly in greeting, hooves shifting in anticipation as fresh hay is forked into mangers, its sweet, dry fragrance mingling with the musky warmth of the animals, evoking the vast meadows from which it was harvested. Buckets of water are drawn from the well, clear and cold, sloshing gently as they are carried to troughs, the liquid reflecting the lantern's flame like captured stars. Brushes glide over coats, removing the night's dust and tangles, strokes long and rhythmic, revealing the gloss beneath, while saddles and harnesses are checked for wear, leather oiled to supple gleam, fingers working the balm into cracks to prevent brittleness. A falconer visits the mews, adjacent hoods removed carefully to let birds blink into the dawn, their feathers ruffling slightly as they adjust morsels of fresh meat offered on gloved fists to strengthen bonds. For Jade entrusts the raptor's beaks, snapping delicately at the offerings. These creatures extensions of the castle's reach, peregrines for swift aerial pursuits, merlins for smaller game stir, with the morning their keen eyes mirroring the awakening world beyond the walls, perhaps sensing the rabbits stirring in the underbrush or pigeons wheeling in the sky. Upward, in the servants' quarters, the household begins to stir, blankets folded aside as feet touch cool flagstones. The stones chill a brief jolt before woolen socks or slippers provide comfort. A young maid splashes water on her face from a ewer, the droplets refreshing as they trace paths down her skin, awakening senses dulled by sleep. She braids her hair with quick, practiced twists, pinning it under a coif, and dons her kirtle, the fabric rustling softly as it settles over her shift, ready for the day's gentle demands. Pages tumble from their palettes, rubbing eyes and whispering of dreams, perhaps of heroic quests or hidden treasures, their voices hushed to not wake the slower risers, quickly dressing in tunics and hose to attend their nights. The air here holds the lingering coziness of shared sleep, a faint scent of lavender from sachets meant to ward off vermin, soon dispelled by the call to duties, fetching wood for fires, the bundles heavy but familiar, drawing water for ablutions from the courtyard fountain, pails balanced on shoulders, preparing chambers for the nobility by airing linens or polishing silver ewers. Their movements are a soft cascade, flowing through narrow stairwells spiraled for defense, footsteps echoing faintly as they ascend or descend, bringing life back to the keep's veins. Each task a small ripple in the pond of morning. In the chapel, the chaplain prepares for matins, vesting in simple robes of undyed wool, the fabric soft from years of wear, as he arranges the altar with care, placing the chalice and paten with reverent hands. Candles are lit anew, their flames steady in the growing light, filtering through colored glass, casting jeweled patterns on the floor, crimsons and azures dancing like living mosaics. The bell tolls softly from the tower, its peals drifting like invitations across the castle, summoning the faithful for morning prayers. The bronze's resonance vibrating through stone and air. Lords and ladies arrive first, their steps measured on the tiled floor, kneeling in quiet devotion, on cushioned prie-dieu heads bowed as they murmur personal orisons, their breaths mingling with the faint incense that curls from a censer swung gently to release its spicy essence. Servants follow, standing at the rear in orderly rows, heads bowed as psalms are chanted in melodic Latin, the words a bridge between earthly routines and spiritual grace, evoking a sense of unity that transcends rank. This ritual, brief yet profound, sets the tone for the day, infusing it with a sense of purpose and peace. The final Amen hanging in the air like a blessing carried forward. As light strengthens, flooding the solar through its southern windows, fitted with rare glass panes that distort the view ever so slightly, the lady awakens to the soft sounds of her attendants, drawing back the bed curtains, heavy velvet parting with a whisper. The room is warmed by dying embers in the hearth, stirred now to fresh flame, the scent of wood smoke lingering softly, blended with the lavender sachets tucked into the linens and pillows. She breaks her fast, privately, perhaps with bread still warm from the ovens, slathered with butter churned the day before, and fruit pears poached in wine from the cellar, conversing softly about the household as needs, the weaving to oversee in the loom room, where patterns of heraldic beasts take shape, the gardens to inspect for pests or ripening herbs, remedies to prepare in the still room, distilling essences from rose petals or willow bark for the apothecary chest. Her role, a quiet orchestration of domestic harmony, ensures the castle's inner workings flow smoothly. Her presence, a steady light for those who serve her, offering guidance with a kind word or a shared smile. The Lord rises in his chamber, the hearth's embers stirred to flame, by his squire a youth attentive to every detail, the room filling with warmth that chases the nights cool from the air, and the tapestries on the walls. He washes and dresses, tunic fastened over hose with laces pulled taut, the heavy key returned to his belt as a constant companion, its weight a tangible reminder of stewardship, breaking fast with ale drawn from the buttery and cheese from the larder, sharp and crumbly on the tongue. He confers with his steward. On the morning, smatters fields, to survey for planting, readiness justice, to administer in the hall for minor disputes. Among serfs, perhaps a hunt, if the weather holds fair hounds, baying softly in their kennels. In anticipation, his steps carry him to the bailey, where the world unfolds in morning's embrace. Craftsmen, kindling forges, the bellows, whooshing as coals glow orange, the clang of hammers, a distant rhythm shaping nails or hinges, gardeners tending beds, dew sparkling on leaves, like scattered gems, hands weeding with care to nurture growth, children scampering with chores, carrying baskets of eggs or kindling, their energy a bright spark in the calm. laughter bubbling like a spring. The great hall stirs next, tables set for the communal meal, though lighter than midday's feast. Porridge ladled into bowls of turned wood, steam rising in gentle curls, bread sliced warm from the ovens, crusts crackling under knives, eggs gathered from the henhouse, if fortune allows, fried with herbs in iron pans. The household assembles, ranks observed yet united in nourishment conversations, murmuring like a waking stream. Plans for trainings in the tilt yard, news from the villages brought by overnight travelers, small gratitudes for the night's rest and the health of kin. Minstrels might play a soft air on lute or pipe, strings humming to greet the sun, easing the transition from dream to deed. Notes floating upward to the rafters, where banners hang still. With breakfast concluded, the day branches outward once more, a flowering of activities that mirrors the sun's climb. Knights head to the tilt yard, armor donned with squire's aid, hauberks slipping over padded gambesons, helmets laced secure, the air soon filled with the soft thud of lances on shields, dust rising in small clouds. Archers practice at the butts, arrows whispering through the breeze, feathers slicing the air before embedding in straw targets with satisfying thunks. The lady gathers her women in the solar spindles, whirring as wool twists into yarn, the wheels hum, a soothing underscore to their talk, laughter weaving through discussions of seasons, turns, betrothals, in distant houses, or stories from ancient chronicles, read by candlelight, servants scattered to tasks, laundry in the wash-house, steaming vats scented with soapwort and ash, lie linens pounded clean on stones, brewing in the alehouse malts, earthy aroma, promising refreshment as worth ferments in barrels, mending in quiet corners, needles, pulling threads with steady grace through rents in cloaks or hems and gowns. In the orchards, fruits ripen under the climbing sun, branches heavy with apples or plums, bees humming in diligent circuits among blossoms that promise future yields. Their buzz a harmonious drone. The dovecote yields eggs, collected in baskets lined with soft cloth, pigeons cooing contentedly as hands reach into niches. The blacksmith's forge glows, shaping tools for the fields beyond, where serfs labor in the domain, their work a distant echo of the castle. His own plows, turning soil, rich with last year's compost, seeds sown in furrows, straight as arrows. Messengers might arrive at the gate, horses lathered from the ride, parchments sealed with wax bearing crests of allies, bringing tidings from afar, alliances strengthened through marriages or pacts, markets flourishing with trade in wool or spices, the world connected by roads that lead back to these walls. Dust from the journey settling in the bailey. As morning matures into the fuller light of day, the castle reveals its timeless essence, a microcosm of medieval life, where lords command with benevolence, their decisions tempered by counsel and custom. Servants contribute with devotion, their efforts the unseen foundation of grandeur, and the stone itself stands as guardian and home, walls that have withstood sieges and storms, now cradling peace. Hierarchies blend in mutual reliance, each role a note in a harmonious chorus, sustained by traditions passed through generations. Feasts on saints' days, harvests celebrated with dances, births and betrothals marked in the chapel's registers. The air holds the mingled sense of life smoke from hearths curling lazily skyward, herbs from gardens crushed underfoot, releasing their essence, bread from ovens wafting invitations, a symphony that speaks of belonging and resilience, where scarcity is met with ingenuity and abundance shared with grace. Yet in this renewal, whispers of the past linger lessons from nights and days entwined, the value of quiet vigilance on moonlit walls, the warmth of shared meals in halls, alive with tales, the grace in daily labors that build legacies unseen. The castle teaches patience, like the slow turn of seasons across the landscape, where every dawn promises fresh beginnings, every dusk a gentle close, and the cycles of sun and moon mirror the rhythms of human endeavor. Lords and servants alike find meaning in the cycle, their lives etched into the very mortar, enduring beyond the fleeting hours. Names carved in ledgers or stone, stories told by firesides to wide-eyed heirs. And so, the night falls quiet, carrying their whispers into silence. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another whisper in the night. Until we meet again, good night.